Okay. I was fearing this podium. I thought, oh shoot, I'm short. I'm gonna be like way beneath. I'll come to the side. Hi guys. Hi. Okay, Amy said make a slide, tell people what's going on with what you're doing, so that's what this first one is. That's Luke. I know. He is my husband. We met in New York City when we went to like a little non-denominational church then, and we had all the same friends, and I thought he was cute and sunshiny. I told someone because he smiles so much, I wasn't sure, like, do you like me or are you just happy? We have 3 little kiddos. Little baby Lily is the freshest one, and she's here. Amy's daughter's watching her right now, which is merciful. And then we have 2 boys who are very warlike. And they are at home with Luke right now. And this is just the stuff we've been working on since we got married. So when Luke and I first got married, I was not into Torah stuff. I thought it was theologically incorrect. And we had a lot of debatey sort of pizza nights trying to like parse through the Bible. But eventually, I had this dream that made me be like, whoa, it actually is true. And shortly after that, he wanted to use his journalism background to make a movie about the people who felt like how we felt. And he's like, I think it's not just us, it's not just my mom, who I thought was crazy but realized wasn't. I think many people are having the same journey, and he's like, let's make it so that we interview people, hear their stories, what made this change in their life, and then we go back and like try to see if we can substantiate some of the claims they're making about scripture and church history with historians and with like a witch and with other people who can tell whether or not these things are true. And then my favorite part is like the lifestyle-y section of the Way documentary. Like, what happens when you start keeping Torah? People start saying Hebrew words like Shabbat Shalom, Mishpachah, and you're like, what are you talking about? I think Angela maybe talks about that in the movie. Where's Angela? Anyway, and like, you know, finding community, losing friends, how do I keep the feasts, all this stuff, and we kind of just show what it's like, because there's a lot. So that's the Way documentary. And then the Christmas question doc is about whether or not it's appropriate for a believer to do Christmas. Is it worshiping our Creator in spirit and truth? And that's that. It's like a lot of historians and a big timeline and history of Santa, etc. And then Luke wrote this apologetics book. I got a few paragraphs in there. See if you can tell which ones I wrote. It's very minimal. It's extremely minimal. But it is an apologetics book for people who want to have answers to all the Paul questions, all the questions people are coming to you with. What about this verse or that verse? And we want to do it in like a fun way, though. It's a little cheeky. There's like jokes in it. There's, you know, weird metaphors. Luke is a creative guy, not just somebody who likes Bible. So we wanted it to be fun and not like stuffy and, I don't know, not stuffy. There's like illustrations and stuff. And then bottom right corner are truth tracts. After he made the book, he was like, what if people don't want to read a whole book? And his mom was like, make a tract. He was like, okay. So those are just little topical things. It's like one's about Peter's vision and one's about tzitzis. Like somebody in the store like, why do you got strings hanging off your pants? Want me to snip those for you? And you're like, no, they're supposed to be there. You can hand him one of these, and it's like all the verses about why you have strings on your pants. And most recently is the Life podcast, The Way, the Truth, and the Life. Get it? And it's just about our lives, because there's a lot more to talk about. How does this play out at work, at home? How do we make a fellowship? How do we keep feasts, and what do you actually do? And then a lot of us have common interests. You're kind of crunchy. We like to be healthy. We like, you know, homesteading. You know, all these things that we have in common that we just like to talk about. We talk to people who are interesting about those things. And so that's on YouTube and all the other places. Okay, next. Oh, where did I put the clicker, you guys? Oh, okay, next. Okay, so we're talking about habits. I didn't pick my topic, Amy did, so. And like all the other speakers, I'm not perfect at this at all. However, I'm interested in like learning about it because, well, for several reasons. What comes to mind when you guys think about habits? You can just shout it out. Like what words come? Pain? Bad? Oh, bad. Brushing teeth, routine, repetition, hard. Change. Chaos. There's a story there. Okay. So those are all like pretty negative, no? So my goal was to like freshen this up a little, like breathe a little life into it, kind of give us all a fresh start when it comes to habits and maybe like shift how we're thinking about it a little bit. First things first, so we are not our like grandest gestures. We are the sum total of all those little repeated actions and thoughts and just little stuff. If there was a husband, let's say he was married 10 years, and in that 10 years, he did a couple like really romantic dinners and like really remembered all these things, and then the rest of the time, he was mean and rude and nasty and sloppy and, you know, the worst. Would you say he was an awesome husband, or would you say he was the worst? You know what I mean? It's not those grand gestures. It's like, oh, one time I did this. One time I went on a mission trip when I was 16 or whatever, and I like, you know, told someone about Jesus. But it's like, what's the day in and day out like, right? Like that's who you actually kind of are, right? Okay. I'm actually asking, right? Because I had this thought when I was holding Lily like a couple minutes ago, and I was like, why habits matter? Because the word, I don't have a ton of verses in here because it's going to get a little bit like more granular about just like practical, Bible's practical, but you know what I mean. But the Bible is really clear that we eat of the fruit of our actions. It's like the righteous man will like eat of the fruit of his ways, and the wicked man will partake in the fruit of his ways eventually, even if it's not right away. So it's like, what are you cooking up? What are you cooking up? So it kind of matters. Next. So you guys have a worksheet here. This is the front. Do you have a pen? Yep. Great. First here come the pens. Raise your hand if you need a pen. Here, up here in the front. Yeah. Oh, do you need the paper?
She's good, but latecomers might need paper.
Oh, yes. Does anyone need the worksheet itself? Okay. We got a couple people who need the like paper itself. Here it is. There we go. So the first thing to do is on the screen, just write down every good habit you wish you had. And I have some categories on the paper so you can like brainstorm better. Don't be like, you know, all super spiritual about it, just fast and furious, like write it down as fast as you can. I'm gonna do it too. Yeah, we need that cute music. It helps us think better. Thinking about Anne in one of her workshops that she does online every year, but not this year. You can go back and listen to it. She talks about she said talking about being dressed and in your right mind. Is she in here? Anyway, yeah. And you were like, every morning you need to be dressed and in your right mind and look like a person. Look like you're going to work, you know? Look like you care about your life. I was like, oh. That's on my list. Not your 3-day-old sweatpants or whatever. Do you guys need more time? No? Why don't you look up when you're done? Okay. So basically, we're gonna go through like 3 ways or 3 kind of steps to lightening up how you think about your habits and approaching them like better and smarter and not so like, ugh. Not so like, have you ever just listened to a podcast or read a book and it was about habits and then you just, at the end, you just feel like a worm. You're like, well, I'm sort of not doing very well. I want this to not be like that. Okay, can you go to the next one? This is us working on habits. How many of you guys wrote down more than one thing on your paper? Raise your hand. More than 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20. More than 20? This is you right here. This is you. Because there's so many, we learn so many good things to do. We listen to all those health things, those TED Talks. You're like, oh, water's bad for you now, so I'm cutting that out. You know, all this, you hear all these, you're like, you know, these biohackers, like I should be taking some supplement I've never heard of on a regular basis. And you have all this information and you're taking it in faster than you can integrate, you know? And so you're just like struggling under the weight of all these habits that you're supposed to be having. And that is not fun, you guys. Next slide. So step 1 is to practice mental minimalism. Who has watched The Minimal Mom or someone similar on YouTube? Yeah. Yeah, we love Dawn, don't we? I think Melissa gave me like, she has like a devotional. It's like declutter with Jesus, or like it's some sort of like scriptures about your stuff. And it like works you through like getting rid of all your junk or whatever. I think that principle of like less is more and like getting down to what's important is important first in your mind. Because even if you live in the like most calm house with like 2 spoons and 1 table, if your mind is a wreck, if your mind is the fish, the school of fish swimming around, you're still not going to be peaceful. It's like you got to have rest in your mind. And to me, this manifests as like when I'm doing something, if it feels like I'm doing the one thing I should be doing and I should only be doing that thing, that feels so nice. That feels so nice. It feels rare because you're like with the kids, but you're like, I should be exercising. And when you're exercising, you're like, I should be checking the email. When you're checking the email, like, I should be doing the dishes. When you're doing the dishes, you know what I mean? It's like, you never feel like you're doing, it's okay to just be doing what you're doing because your mind is so noisy. So we want mental minimalism. We want to have that peace in our hearts and in our lives. And I also think it's a good witness. We won't be like the frantic, crazy people who don't have peace. It's like, well, if you don't have peace, then what's the point of even knowing you're God? Does it make a difference? You're just as stressed as I am. You're worse than I am. You know, that's no good. And so I got this picture of this lady who I imagine is cooking and only cooking. She's not also like, you know, checking her email. She's not also, whatever, doing other things. Yeah. They probably are. Next. Okay, have you guys heard of Kayte Bowman? You have? Okay, she's a biomechanist. She studies movement. She studies how people move, their bodies. And so her most famous book was called Move Your DNA. And I think she had one called like Don't Just Sit There. But she talks about how in modern society, our technology does away with movement. You have a washing machine, so you don't have to go like this. You know, you have a lawnmower, so you don't have like to do a sickle. You know, that's an oblique workout. If you had to mow your lawn like that, we have strollers, so we're not doing like this. Almost every time, we have remotes. So we're not walking up to the TV anymore. Even our phones, it's like we used to at least have to go like this. I remember those because my grandpa had one of those. It's way more fun to go like this, actually. They should bring that back. But part of her thesis is that technology does away with movement. So we like save time, but then we're scheduling in time to exercise. It's like you didn't save time, you just segmented things. So now you have a new thing on your to-do list because you removed the movement from, like you're not kneading your bread, it's like bread machine, which nothing against bread machines. Melissa gave me some fabulous bread machine bread the other day. But do you get what I'm saying? So her little speech bubble says, when you stop doing things the old, slow, hard way, you have to schedule in more time for movement because you lost part of the process and there was actually something good in that. And she gives this example, she talks about stacking activities. And she says, she lives in the Pacific Northwest, I think, and she says, sometimes I'll go for a walk with my kids, and we'll walk really far through the woods till we get to this lake, and it's like sunny, I'm spending time with my kids, and we like jump in the lake, we swim, and then we walk home. Well, it's like that could be a lot of things on your habit to-do list. She's getting vitamin D, she's spending quality time with her kids, she is exercising, she's doing a cold plunge, because the water is really cold over there, you know? And so that's 4 things. That could have been 4 things on her schedule or 4 things on her mind, but it's just one activity. Do you see what I mean? So it's like a different way of thinking. Like, how do I synthesize all these things that I have on my list? Are there activities that actually like scratch several itches at once, that tick several boxes at once? And maybe sometimes the answer is like the older way of doing something that you can then involve your children with or whatever. Oh, I have, her name is Kayte, so she's probably right. Sorry, you're not supposed to laugh at your own jokes. Next. So oh wait, can you go back one? Here's our little brain thinking, could a few actions take the place of many? Can we simplify a little bit? 20 things on your list? I'm looking at you over there. Okay, next. So I just want to go through a couple examples of how this might look. Let's say you want to connect with the hubs every day, and you want to also do like no screen time before bed, and you want to read more. There's a simple way to bring that all into one thing. It's like after the dinner is set, like put away, and the kids are in bed, you're reading a book, you're reading a chapter out loud together, which I think is really lovely. Do you guys read with your person ever? It's kind of nice. Read out loud, it's kind of nice. It's interesting. I'm like, wow, I think I love you more. And then you're like learning together, it gives you something to have this conversation, and you're also not on your phone. You're like doing all the things that you want to do just in the one activity. Can you go to the next one? Okay, let's say you want to move more, you want to go outside more, and you want to hang out with your kids, like the example I gave before. You know, when my middle son's Sam. When Sam wakes up for his nap, let's just all go outside and go for a walk. Easy. Next. Or let's say you look in the mirror and you're like, I need to take more collagen. I'm just kidding. No one's ever had that thought. My dad's people are from Ghana, you guys, and their skin is impeccable. The old ladies, they're like 115. They don't even know how old they are. They're like, I'm from the year that the lion like attacked the tribe. That's not even exaggeration. Like there was like no census back then. They're like, oh yeah, she's like 106, like paddling a canoe still or whatever. And these ladies, this is totally an aside, but like a lot of their food is like stews, meat on the bone that's been cooking for like ever. And so I'm like, everything you eat is bone broth. You know what I mean? Because like that's the base of this thing, and it's been like all the goodness. And I'm like, their skin is like. So anyway, let's say you want to take collagen, you want to cut down your grocery budget, and you want to have more nutrient-dense Weston A. Price kind of dinners. Do you guys like Weston A. Price Foundation? Yeah, buddy. Me too. So maybe your thing is every Sunday when you get your groceries, you're going to make a batch of bone broth. There you go, collagen. There you go, you got that whole chicken. You can like do stuff with it all week, right? And then because you're doing stuff with the chicken all week, it could be more cost effective, for example. Next. Okay, so now it's your turn. I want you to look back at the habits you wrote down and see if you can think of one habit that accomplishes a few things on your list. And it might be kind of hard, so, give yourself grace. If you can't think of one habit that could encompass several, think of a gateway habit. And that would be something one habit that would make other ones easier. For example, waking up early I think of as like a gateway habit, because once you're up early, then you could spend your time with Yah. You could exercise. You could plan your day. You know what I mean? But if you don't do that one, then the other ones you might not have space for. So that's like a gateway habit. So see if you can think of something that synthesizes some of the stuff on your list. And then write that where it says the one habit. Is it working or is this like an impossible mission? This is hard. It's kind of hard. It's hard and working. I know. Maybe you guys need to like, if you can't think of something, maybe you need to like get into clumps later or like find friends and be like switch lists. Because sometimes it's hard to see it for your own stuff, but like, you know how you can like quickly and easily solve everyone else's problems? It's like you need to do X, Y, and Z, obviously. And then like switch, and then maybe they'll have ideas for you or something. You could try that. Okay, I think we can go on to the next thing. All right, so once you find that, that is what you focus on, and you can kind of like release some of the other stuff on your list. But there's a trick about this. So have you ever like done a brain dump? You've written all the stuff down, you've gotten it out of your head, but your head still is like buzzing. You still don't feel calm. I think it's because we can't like trick our brains. It's like you wrote it down, but your brain knows you're never going back to that list, ever. So you might as well have not written it down, right? It's like so a while ago I took this organizational like course online, and it was actually really amazing. And one of the things that a habit that they have you establish is to do the brain dump, organize this list in a really like cool way that makes it manageable and put stuff into like neat and tidy boxes, and then make a plan to revisit your list, your projects and your one-time tasks and your goals on a regular basis, once a week and once a month, depending on what you're looking at. And so when you have the habit, when your brain knows that at the end of every week, I'm going to look at my current, projects or whatever, see how I'm doing, migrate things into the list because I've made more space, I've checked things off, I'm going to move things out, and I'm going to see what needs to be done next. I'm going to look at those things from my brain dump. Then your brain actually does calm down because it can trust you. You know what I mean? Our brains are smart. It's like, you're not looking at that list again, so I'm just going to keep it. I'm going to keep it. But if, for example, you made a habit of revisiting that stuff, I think it could quiet a lot of the noise. But you can't fake yourself out. You know what I mean? So that's just like a little tip for actually like letting things go a little. Okay. Step 2. So step 1 was like, let's synthesize these habits down into like fewer things so it's not so overwhelming. Step 2 is updating your identity. And quieting self-criticism. I just picked that lady because she looked like she was having a good time. Okay, next. Have you ever said, I'm just an artist, but like, you're kind of messy. Or I'm just on island time, or black people say like CPT, colored people time. Have you heard of this? You're chronically late. Or I'm just passionate, but you're easily angered. Or I'm laid back, but you're actually kind of lazy. Or I just tell it like it is, but you're kind of rude sometimes. These are all these like labels that we can put on our bad habits to assume them as a part of our personality. You guys are funny. Okay. One time I often will begin a text or an email, and I'm not proud of this. This is something I'm changing, hopefully. I'll begin a text or an email with like, I'm sorry it's been so long, pardon the delay, that sort of thing. And one time I felt myself responding, or I saw myself responding to a text like, I'm so sorry, like, I'm just a slow text responder. Do you see the difference? One is like, I'm sorry it's been so long, and this is like, that's just who I am, I'm sorry, I'm just a slow text responder. And then it's like, you can't be as mad at me, because like, that's just who I am. I was born like this. No, just kidding. But it's like, can you go to the next slide? So Zach Galifianakis wants to know, why do we do this? Why do we call ourselves by our bad habits? And I think the reason is because it's easier to just say that's who you are than to chronically feel bad for not being able to defeat it. Oh, I know. I feel like that too. That makes sense, see? It's tiring to struggle against your own bad habits forever and not feel like you're gaining ground. So sometimes we just say, I'm just a slow text responder. And then it's like you at least have a little bit of peace. But we don't want to do that. I love what Amy started out with. She's just like, be better. Be better. Just level up. Let's like get our, oh man, I thought of an expression that has to do with excrement and socks and never mind. I won't say that. Let's get our stuff together. Okay, we can move beyond Adam. Okay, here's a verse. So far as your former way of life is concerned, you must strip off your old nature, because your old nature is thoroughly rotted by its deceptive desires. I mean, you must let your spirits and minds keep being renewed and clothe yourself, like you're getting dressed every day. Clothe yourself, you have to do it a lot, right? You don't get dressed once, unless you're like, I'm like postpartum mom. It's like, I've been in this tank top forever. Clothe yourself with the new nature created to be godly, which expresses itself in the righteousness and holiness that flow from the truth. That's complete Jewish Bible, so it sounds a little different than I'm used to hearing it. But some translations just say, put on the new man. Put on the new man. Take off something and put on something. It's not like, oh, you're good, you're just good how you are. It's like, no, you're actually not. Sorry. Okay, next. Okay, so now we're gonna do a little updating with the identity. We're gonna like brainstorm a little bit. I want you to write about the day that you would have. Put yourself in your peak Anne-ness or like Angela-ness. Like you're having the best day ever. Everything's firing on all cylinders, right? And you're kind of describing the day you would have if you were in that framework. Like, in other words, what would Yeshua do in your life? With your finances, with your family, with your responsibilities, with your house, your car, your weight, your challenges, like that. Like, what is the best case scenario that could ever happen? So look at these questions. It says, on my absolute best day, there's some questions down there. This might take a second, but that's okay. We're just going to work through these a little bit. I'm not going to read them out because I think we'll just probably all go different paces on this. A little bit more time. Yay or nay? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs up, no more time. Thumbs down, more time. Okay, mostly up. All right, next. So the woman you just described on your absolute best day, we're gonna call new Kayte. I just described new Kayte. New Kayte's awesome. Next. That's new Kayte. So one thing about habits is like we all shouted out these like horrible sounding words at the very beginning of like what comes to mind when you think of habits. And I think what helps is just to make it a little bit sillier, a little bit not so serious. And so a little while ago I did this by making a distinction between new Kayte and old Kayte. I was like, new Kayte left the clean laundry on the chair for 6 days, but old Kayte did, but new Kayte just cleaned it up. Or like old Kayte forgot she had library books out for 6 months. But new Kayte rounded up the library books and got the kids in the car and we like stuck them in that little slot and we feel great about it. So I just kind of in my mind decided that was then, this is now. Okay, I made a distinction because it's hard to change when you're still identifying with the old behavior. I'm a slow text responder who's trying to respond faster. It's like, no, I used to be a slow text responder and now I'm not. And when I take a long time and I forget to respond, that was old Kayte. She made the mess, but new Kayte's gonna clean it up. That kind of thing. Next. And so this is not about being in denial. It's not about like not knowing yourself and what your struggles are and what you have a hard time with. It's just about deciding that your bad behaviors aren't allowed to come with you into the future. You guys, like a lot of you guys are moms, or even if you're not, you can probably do like a mom voice. You are not allowed. I want you all to say that in your momist voice. Ready? You are not allowed. Again. You are not allowed. Ooh, you guys are kind of scary. I like it. Just kidding. But seriously, you sometimes think like, oh, I've always had this thing and blah, 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 and you think that it just has to drag with you to your deathbed. But it doesn't. Again, like what Amy said the very first day, we can change. You can decide to, but you have to decide to. And part of deciding to is being like, yes, I've been like that. I like that verse that says like, Abraham, he faced the fact that his body was as good as dead, and yet he still trusted that God could like do a cool supernatural thing with this fertility situation, you know? And so he wasn't in denial about the fact that he was old as the hills. He knew how old he was, but he also recognized that there could be more, there could be hope, and that God could bring about change in that situation. It's similar for this. Okay, so here's step 3. This step is almost all from this book called The Power of Habit by James Duhigg. I don't know how you say his last name. Have you guys read this book, The Power of Habit? Okay, great. This will be new then. A habit looks like one thing. It looks like one behavior, but it's really 3 things. It's a cue, and it's a behavior, and it's a reward or a payoff. A cue, a routine, and then a reward. And so we're just gonna look at our habits a little bit more closely to see what's actually going on there. We're gonna like get under the hood, so to speak. But I don't know anything about cars, so it's like not a good metaphor, but we're gonna, have you guys watched the Great British Baking, what's it called? British, yes, yeah, that. And there's that one judge who like, these people spend forever making these beautiful pastries, and the one guy likes to like get in there with his finger, like, let's check the crumb, and he's like, "Wah." And I'm like, you're ruining the thing, and he's like all in it, like trying to see if it's like baked correctly or whatever, and I was like, it's so upsetting. Like, they just were like making that really smooth for a long time, and you're like in there with your hand, it's like violent. But we're gonna do that with habits. So we're gonna just, the cue is the trigger for the behavior. The routine is the behavior, and the reward is the payoff. That's how a habit works. And every time you get the reward, it reinforces you wanting to go back to that same behavior when that cue comes up again. Your brain remembers, oh, something good happened last time I did this. Last time I ate the ice cream, I forgot about my fight with my friend. And I felt happy after. So let's do that again next time I have a mental crunchiness. That'll smooth it out. Next. So let's talk about cues real quick. We're just gonna break down each of the things. In the book, he talks about how there's different kinds of cues. A cue can be a location. When I go to my parents' house, I just revert back to my like inner child and start acting like a, brat or whatever. Like that's a location, that's a cue. Or an emotion. When I feel overwhelmed, I always want like an extra 3 glasses of wine. I'm just giving examples. It's not personal. It could be a time. First thing in the morning, I exercise. There's one. It can be a preceding action. So one that we've done in our family for a couple of years is that we sit down and we eat breakfast together, and when we're all like settled, which takes a minute. Do you guys have little kids? I need juice, I need water, I need a butter knife. Like it's like, where's the jam? I'm like, oh. And then like they're like done eating and I'm just like sitting down or whatever. But that's just the joys of the season. Anyway, so we all sit down to eat, and then we're like, where's Daddy's phone? Because my one son, Max, had this phase where he put Ia on the end of everyone's name. So I'm like, Mommy-a, Luca's Daddy-a. You have an Ia, Adder? Okay. So where's Daddy's phone? So we find Luke's phone, and we listen to a chapter of the Bible. We just listen through in order. And at the end of it, Max gives his report. So Luke's like, stand and give your report. He loves it. He'll like stand there and he'll say, in this chapter, David's talking about, God, I hope you kill my enemies, or whatever. He says what he remembers from the chapter, and we're like, great job. And then Sam, who's 3, he's like, I want to give a report. And then we just give him a sentence to repeat so that they can tell us what they remember from what they heard. And that is a preceding action / also a time-based routine. Because when we sit down to eat, we get settled, and we're like, okay, where's the phone? And then so we can listen to that guy with the good voice read us a chapter of the Bible. And then another kind of cue is other people. So like someone cuts you off in traffic, and then something automatically happens. That's a funny face. My sister-in-law used to know this lady who, she drove with this lady one time, and when somebody did something crazy in traffic, she would just immediately start praying for them. It's like, Father in heaven, I just pray that if they're having a crazy day, that you would just bring them peace and that you would give them self-control, and I pray that nothing bad's going on. But genuine. Instead of being like, she would actually instantly start praying for the people who cut her off in traffic, which is a very cool kind of habit to have. Okay, next. Routine, that's easy. It's just the thing you do because of the cue. Next. So those little lines are supposed to be symbolic of a chart, a graph from the study that they did with rats or mice about these mice going through a maze and finding chocolate at the end. And when it became routine for the mice to find the chocolate, their brain had a spike of activity in the beginning when they're set in the maze. Then their brain activity dips down and almost shut off on the way to the chocolate. And then it had a spike again at the end when they got to the chocolate. And what they established with that is that basically during habits, your brain shuts off. It's like when you get in the car and you end up somewhere and you don't remember driving there because you were thinking about other stuff. That's a habit. And we were just talking at our table at one of these meals about how the brain uses a lot of calories, but it's only this small percentage of your body, and so it tries to be efficient. And the way that it does that is by establishing these habits so it can shut down and just have the stuff run autopilot and not have to be thinking about every single thing, because that's too taxing. So people have said up to 45% of the stuff you do during the day is that stuff where your brain is shut down and you're just going. You're not even making a conscious decision. It's something that's just been ingrained. It's a habit, which is a lot. Don't you feel like you're making more decisions than that? I do. It's can I have the 58th raisin? I was I don't know. It's a lot of raisins. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm making a lot of decisions, but apparently I'm not. Okay, next. The reward is the payoff for doing the thing. It's the thing that keeps you coming back, and it's not always what you think. And smoking, I think, is a good example. I've never smoked, but I've talked to smokers, and they say that this is legit. So you might just think, oh, nicotine, or whatever, is the reward. But if you think about it, when someone smokes, let's say they're at work, and then they go outside, that time outside might be their fresh air for the day. You're getting time outside. Also, what do you do when you smoke? It's you're breathing deeply, which is actually really calming. It's people do that on purpose in other kinds of exercise just to get the deep breath. You're getting relaxation by smoking. Or maybe all the smokers gather in a circle and start talking. It's kind of social. It's maybe that's your connection point with people. So it's like, it's maybe not just like nicotine. It might be fresh air, it might be relaxation, it might be a chance to think, and it might be connection with people. Those are actually maybe the payoff, or part of the payoff for something like smoking, say. Or you could fill in the blank with any other kind of habit. Next. So let's play a game. Let's play what's the real payoff? And so the payoff is the feeling or like the state that you achieve when you do a thing. Okay? So I'm gonna like say a thing and you're just gonna shout out what you think we might be getting from these behaviors. Does that make sense? We'll just start and we'll see if we can get it. Okay, so like overeating desserts. What is the real payoff for just like finishing the whole? Sit down for a second. Yes. What else? The flavor. It's like sensory. It's just pleasure. Just plain old, just it's nice. Yeah. What else? Being in the moment. Present. When you're eating the ice cream, you're often not thinking about the 12 other things. You're just thinking about that ice cream. It gets you into the moment, which our brains crave because we're too scattered oftentimes. Yeah. The dopamine. Yeah. It's like a hit of joy or of even like energy. It's like sugar. You get a little burst, right? A little bit of something.
If you're eating it in the bathroom, hiding from your children.
Eating it in the bathroom, hiding from your children. You get quiet.
You get to eat your own food. Yes.
Oh, you get to eat your own food.
Yes.
You get something for yourself. This is my ice cream. You know, can your kids like, are your kids like detectives? Do they like smell like? Yeah. One time I thought I was slick and Sam's like, what smells like chocolate? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just kidding. Hopefully I didn't lie, but I can't make any promises. Okay, next. So excessively checking social media. What are we getting out of that? A break? Frustration. Perceived connection. Yes. I can't tell you how many times my mom's like, oh, how's such and such friend doing? Or this friend. And I'm like, oh, they've got this, and this. And she's like, oh, so you've talked to them? And I'm like, no, I haven't talked to them. I've just seen what they've been posting. It's like, it feels like connection, but it's not quite connection oftentimes. Likes for approval. Yeah. More memes. Yeah, it's like entertaining, it's stimulating, it's exciting. A little escape. Yeah, that's one. What about, let's skip a couple. What about buying the stuff that you don't need on Amazon? What are we getting out of that? A present. It's like you get a present. It's like, oh, yeah. It's true. Retail therapy, like a little bit of, it's just like a little nice thing that makes you forget about other things. It's a reward or something. Yeah. Gossiping. What are we getting out of gossiping if that ever happens? Self-elevation, like it makes you feel a little bit better, like at least I'm not like those sinners over there. While you're also sinning. It's like, that's the irony of it, right? Yeah. I could see that one being a connection thing too. It's like, oh, all the friends are around, or people are talking, and it's like, okay, a couple of these are like around procrastination. Yeah, like you know something people don't know, and it's like, yes, which is like a kind of connection or belonging, like I'm in the inner, yes, exactly. Significance, that's true. What about when you yell at your kids instead of disciplining them? Doesn't it sometimes feel like it's the same thing, but it's like not?
Control. I get that release because they did something that aggravates you.
Release the pressure. It's like the instant pop when you do that thing. I like always jump back before I like release that valve. It's so scary. Somebody over here said something. Control. Yeah, like just straight up power.
You don't have to get out of the recliner.
Yes. You can do it from far away. That's the great thing about yelling. Oh man, yeah, it's so true. It does feel like power and a release. It's like lions roar. They don't like whisper. They're in charge and they roar really loudly. So maybe it's like, I don't know. Okay, I think we can go on to the next. I think you guys get the idea. It's often just, it's not like, oh, I eat a cookie because sugar. It's like, I eat a cookie because I was sad and the sugar makes me happy. It makes makes me think I'm happy until I like, oh guys, okay. Speaking of a habit loop, so I like ice cream. And I don't think that's a bad habit. I think it's okay to like ice cream, especially if it's like from raw milk, right? That's practically a salad if it's like raw milk ice cream. But so I was like having some ice cream or whatever, and I had a lot this one particular night, and then instead of it being like, you know, kids are in bed, I'm sitting talking with Luke, you know, so I get the ice cream and then I feel joy. It was like I got the ice cream, and that night I had the worst seasonal allergies. Like in the middle of the night, I was itchy in my throat and my eyes, and it was just like the worst. I had to like take a Benadryl in the middle of the night. And I knew it's because for me, like dairy and sugar will make those seasonal allergies worse. And for some reason, like that itchiness disrupted that cycle of like cue, routine, reward. It was like cue, routine, pain. And then I just didn't want any after that. Thanks, God. Okay, next. So fortunately, there's more than one way to scratch an itch. Look at this little puppy. Okay. Next. Let's play another game. This is called What Else Can Scratch the Itch? This is where we get into taking a bad habit and morphing it into something better. So let's say you're after stimulation or excitement. And you could get that stimulation or excitement from scrolling. Like who knows what's going to go through your Instagram feed or the YouTube shorts, right? What's another way that you could get that stimulation or excitement that would actually be life-giving or, you know, good for you or not a waste of time? What's that? Make something. Yes. Game night. Yes, I love it. That's
Favorite song,
nature hike, what'd you say?
Favorite song?
Favorite song? Yes, that's stimulating.
Good book.
A good book. Love it. You guys have good ideas. Exercise. It's really stimulating. I guess it depends on what you do. Guys, I used to do glow-in-the-dark Zumba. I know. I like it because even though I'm black, I can't really dance. So it was in the dark, and the instructor wore these like wristbands and a headband and these things on her ankles, and the room was like pitch black, and you follow along, and everyone's dancing, and the music's loud, and no one's like looking at your dance, and it's like a great workout. That was the best. That was stimulating because like the music was fun and blah blah blah. You had to learn choreography, so it was like I actually had to like learn something and memorize. It was like stimulating on many levels. Okay, next. So physical comfort or pleasure. By the way, I should just say all these things that we're after on this list, once it comes back, are good things. They're needs that we actually should meet. So it's not as if like we shouldn't have pleasure ever, or we shouldn't be stimulated ever, or we shouldn't feel connected to people. It's like we were made to have all these needs met. It's just that we need to meet them in ways that are honoring to our Heavenly Father and helpful to us, right? Okay. So for the physical comfort or pleasure, you could do the Snickers, which, you know, or you could hug your husband. Yes, we love that. Aromatherapy, smell something good. There was this pastor that came to my church growing up, and he was like, my church growing up was a little bit wild, you guys. It was like a big, crazy mega church, and there were all these like crazy televangelists who would come. But this one guy was like, I walk around with my own essential oils because I don't want others to dictate what I smell. And so he just had this thing, and he would be like, he was like, I don't want others to dictate what I smell. I was like, okay. I just never forgot that. Aromatherapy. What else could give that comforting pleasure feeling? Hot cocoa, bubble bath. What else? You guys said fuzzy blanket at the same time. Do you guys know each other? You should. You're the fuzzy blanket people. Okay, those are great. What about connection? We talked about gossiping, but like, what's a better way to get that connection? Talk to someone. Yeah. Worship. Yeah. Yeah, talk more about that. What do you mean? You mean just with like...
Worship is communion, it's connection, we're in connection and we're under the Spirit. Like we're in it together, we're all worshiping.
Yeah.
So we're right there. So it just you feel connected. Not only to Him, but to the people around you who are also worshiping.
I agree. It's like when you're singing a song, because like, you know, some of us go to smaller fellowships or larger or whatever, but when you get together in a larger group and you hear all the voices, there's something so nice about that. I remember when I did used to go to a huge mega church and they would say, turn to like, whatever, Nahum 3. And then you hear all the pages like, that sound. It's like everyone's going there. Oh, it's like the best sound ever. Yeah. Worship it's interesting because you're not even talking to the people around you. You're all talking to the same person, but you still like feel connected to them just because you're that in that one chord sort of thing. Yeah. This podcast I listen to called Homemaker Chic, it's these 2 moms who are YouTubers and they're friends and they're Christians, they're homesteaders and homeschoolers. They talked about bringing back like letter writing, like writing a letter to someone. And I was like, that's so romantic. It almost feels like it's like what people in the movies and in the past do. But like it's such a lovely idea because it's a different kind of communication. And it makes it, like you're probably going to make it more meaningful and like think about what you're writing instead of just like you're like shooting back and forth memes and LOLs and emojis and it's like just this degradation of language and it's like this drivel or whatever. Like writing a letter seems kind of lovely. A phone call. Yeah. Encouragement. Yes. Yeah. Doing ministry. Who said that? Oh, hi. Yeah. Yes, because when you minister to someone, you're tuning in with what they need. And that is a kind of a connection because you're looking at them, thinking about them, and being conscious of them, and then trying to help, right? Wait, I'm sorry, I interrupted. What did you say? Praying for them. Praying with them.
On the phone too, I have a couple friends like at the end of our phone calls, either me or them will say, "What do you need prayer for?" And then we pray for each other. And it's really cool.
Oh,
I haven't seen them in years, but there's one friend she always makes a point to do it.
man, you guys are so spiritual. I love it. Okay, I think we got to keep going because I think I'm. Okay, turn the paper over if you haven't already. Can you go to the next one? I think what we're gonna do is I might explain what to do with the back and then you guys do it on your own time, but I'm just gonna like breeze through this really fast. Let's talk about how to kill a bad habit. It's a little bit aggressive, but that's the life I've been living as a boy mom, and so everything is like war and history march and I don't know. Do you guys know about History March? It's this YouTube channel where they like show how battles played out. Anyway, here's how we can kill a bad habit. Number 1 is you can quiet the cue down. So let's say you're trying to be more like dialed in about what you're eating. Unfollow the pastry chef's Instagram. You don't need to watch him slowly pour chocolate for 49 seconds. That's not gonna help. Number 2, you can make the routine difficult. So just don't bring the contraband into your house to begin with. I'm gonna say something offensive. Are you guys ready? Okay, you're like, no, we're not ready. Don't say something offensive. It's not really offensive, it's just kind of harsh. But sometimes you'll hear like moms be like, oh, my kids will only eat like chicken nuggets and fries and like Twinkies. I'm like, do they have a credit card? Do they have a car? Who buys the groceries? Sorry, I know that's kind of harsh, but it's kind of true. It's kind of true. I'm like, if you place broccoli before them and they can't drive, guess what they have to eat? I mean, my parents were not playing that. Where my dad's from, there's not kids' food, kids' menu. First of all, the kids eat last. It's like all the communal dish, you like let the older people get their stuff, then the kids dive in, but like their stuff is spicy. It's like the fires of hell, and they just give like a little drop to the baby, and like they're not making like more vanilla stuff for the kids or whatever. Anyway, how did I get on that? Oh, okay. It's just that don't bring the cookies in your house to begin with. Make it hard. It's like we fill our house with stuff, or we fill even our Instagram feed maybe with people who make you envy. And then you're like, I wanna be content. I wanna be content. And then you're just like looking at stuff all day that makes all your stuff look so crummy. Why am I not content? I have no self-control. But it's like you've also set yourself up for failure. So it's like you can make it really hard to do the thing. And then the last thing is you can get real about the downside of the reward. So you might feel great doing whatever the bad habit is, but maybe you should take some time and just journal about everything that's awful about it. Get granular, like super specific. Why is it terrible? So that you can break some of that romance in your head around the bad habit and be real about what it's doing in your life. Okay, next. Now, so this is going to help you do what's on the back of your worksheet to the top half is all about outlining a good habit that you currently have and just understanding how it works. So if you look at the back of your worksheet on the top, it has a cue, a routine, and a reward, and a space to fill in what those things are. So in my breakfast example, the cue is we sit down to breakfast. The routine is we hear a chapter of the Bible, and the reward is that I see my kid learning, the word and articulating it back, and he's 6 and he's having all these awesome connections, and he's practicing presenting stuff, and I just feel proud of him. And it's a family thing that we do together every single morning. Like, that's an awesome payoff. So you're getting multiple things from that. So the top half of your sheet, you're going to fill it in about a good routine so you can get used to piecing it apart and seeing what's there. And the bottom half, you're going to take what used to be a bad routine and make it good. So you're going to think about a bad habit that you want to break, and you're going to fill in those items, and then you're going to think of new routines that can scratch the same itch. So let's say out of your bad habit, you're getting connection currently. You're going to think of a couple things that could also give you connection, and then try those things when the cue pops up. Are we tracking? Is this making sense? So like, let's say your cue is like you get overwhelmed and frustrated. Normally you do something you don't like. The next time you get overwhelmed and frustrated, you're going to try other things. And if after trying the other thing, it scratched the itch, it did it, you feel better, you feel connected, or you feel you've had like a pleasurable situation or whatever, then that can be a habit that can stick. When it doesn't work is when the replacement thing doesn't scratch the same itch. It's like, instead of ice cream, I'm gonna have kale, raw, unmassaged. When you massage it, it gets like more exciting. It's like, if you're getting a particular thing from the ice cream, the kale's not gonna cut it. And it's not because kale's bad, it's because it's not doing what you're trying to get at. For me, it's a grapefruit. I love grapefruits, you guys. It's like so hydrating, it's like kind of sweet and sour, it's cold also, you know what I mean? So I'm getting something similar, and then the boys love them, so I do it after they go to bed, and I'm like, this is my grapefruit. And I just like revel, so I'm getting the same thing. So that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna practice or think of things that you can substitute. That's all this says. So to create a good habit, pick a cue from a routine you already have, switch your current behavior for a better one, and enjoy the same reward. And the key is to play with those routines until you find one that actually does what you're after. So let's recap real quick. The first step to kind of like lightening things up with habits is trying to do fewer habits that do more. Reduce it down. The next thing is that the old you is not the new you. So you don't have to keep calling yourself by your bad habits. You can recognize that you've done it before, but it's not allowed to come with you into the future. And the final thing is that we can switch better routines and get the same nice rewards. There are other ways to scratch our itches, so to speak. Does that make sense? All right, thanks, guys.